Okay, it looks like we are recording. We are live. Okay, what is happening YouTube? So in the past, I've been editing videos and putting them up on the channel and spending quite a lot of time on them. But my last video, I just wanted to test out some of my new recording gear and my Rodecaster Pro and the Stream Deck and all these different gadgets. And for some reason, I just went live and I seem to have more activity going live than I do when I do all the editing and the pre-rehearsal. So I'm just going to go live, I think, from now on, unless you guys tell me not to. So in the last video, I had a message. So if you can see the browser here, I had a comment from a user called John Jauncey asking me to do some Git refresher. Now, one of the issues I have, so a little bit about my background. So I'm currently a security consultant, ethical hacker, penetration tester, however you want to call it. I've got 22 years of experience in IT. Before I was into any kind of security testing, I was into programming and doing sort of DevOps and server management and Linux administration, lots of different programming languages. And one of the problems I have is I have so much knowledge that I want to get out, and I don't know what level to sort of pitch it at. So the comments really do help. So if you have anything that you actually want to specifically learn, put it in the comments, and I'll try and get to teaching it. For this guy, John Jauncey, though, I'm going to go into a bit of Git training today. I'm going to have a look at Git. I'm probably going to break this up actually into multiple live streams, because one thing they don't tell you when you start YouTube is all these lights. It makes the room hot pretty fast, and it is actually quite baking in here now with all this this lighting. I am actually pretty hot already. Just sort of running around, turn these lights on, and just going to get coffee, come back, and the room's quite warm. So we'll probably break this up into coffee breaks or multiple streams. But to start with, let's have a look at configuring Git and getting going with Git. And in fact, what we'll do is we'll start off trying to configure SSH keys with Git, because there's one problem that I see over and over again when people start off using Git. As soon as they have multiple Git accounts, or they have a GitHub and a GitLab account, or they have multiple repos that they want different individual SSH keys attached to, they run into this common problem. And I'm going to show it to you actually on the command line. So let's just go to the command line. Okay, so here I've got a brand new server. It really is just brand new. I literally just spun it up, grabbed a coffee, and I've come back to it. It's been live it's not even been live for 10 minutes. So this is a brand new server. We're logging into it for the first time. What we're going to do, I should just point out as well, do not do what I'm doing here, and that is use the root user. Obviously, if you're developing on a day-to-day basis, you want to make sure that you've got a standard user account. Sudo up if you need to have like root permissions, or at worst you can switch into the root account from the standard user, but don't make a habit of logging in as root. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'm just going to go straight into configuring Git with multiple SSH keys, multiple repos, and multiple access methodologies. And you might be thinking at home, like, why would I need this? Okay, you might have a global key attached to your GitHub repository, or you might have, whatever you're using, Bitbucket, name the Git repo technology. The reason is, as you start to become a more full stack developer, or you start getting into penetration tests and ethical hacking, you will typically have multiple keys and multiple accounts and multiple things that you need to see, multiple projects to work on, and they won't all be contained in your one repo. When that happens, you need to really specify which key that you're going to be using in which repo. So let's start off there. So on the command line now, in fact, let me just take myself out of the screen a second, just so we can make this extra large. I'm going to use the SSH keygen command to generate a key. Okay, so hope you can see that text okay. Let's just make it a little tiny bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to use the SSH keygen command like so. Now, I'm not going to use any particular options with this, but you can do the -t option to choose the encryption type. You can. There's other options you can specify. For this particular example, for this first example, I'm just going to use all the default options. I'm not going to put any passphrases. I'm going to use the default locations, and I'm just going to generate a key. Okay. So it's going to generate it. Now, if this is a typical user, like a standard user, this won't be in the root directory. This will be home, then your user, then .ssh. And you can see that the default nomenclature for keys is to use the ID underscore and then the encryption. So you can see there we're using RSA encryption. If we weren't using RSA encryption, it would be whatever the encryption type here by default for the first key. So let's just press enter. Let's just press enter, and then so again. Okay, so we've created our key. I'm going to clear the screen. You see people do clear all the time like this. To get yourself a little bit faster, you want to hold down Control, press L, clear the screen really quickly. Okay, so we've generated our key. We're going to go into our SSH folder, like so, and see what we've generated. So you can see here, we've got a public and private key. And as you can probably guess, the public key ends in .pub. Now, by default, this key name will get searched for when you start doing things like connecting over SSH and doing Git clones, because this key name, it is a known key name. I'm going to set up Git using a deploy key. So I'm going to do it on a per repo basis, use a deploy key to make a contrived example for you to show you what happens when keys clash. Okay, so I'm going to do the cat command. Let's press Control L again just to clear the screen a little bit. And then I'm going to do ID underscore R. Just tab that out again, press the dot and tab that out again. So we've got the public key. Now, obviously, this key will be gone by the time I unlist this video. But I'm just going to copy this. So it's on my clipboard, and I just did that with the right click. I'm now going to jump across to the browser. So here I am again, you can see my face. And I don't have any repositories in here because I set this up literally 2 days ago when John asked for this Git refresher. And I've been busy ever since, but let's get going now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on repositories, and I'm going to click new repository. Let's make a name for this repository, and we'll call this Billy. Let's call this Billy. Billy sounds like a name for a repository. I'll make this private. I'll add a README, because it'll save me having to put a file in there. And then I'll just create this repository. Obviously, if you were doing this properly, you'd have to maybe consider a git ignore template, especially if it's a common template that you're using. So like if you're doing Python, for example, I'll just give you an example. So if you type in Python here, it's always good to use these git ignore templates because they do cover most of the common git ignore scenarios that you'll need. Obviously, you can choose a licensing. Just for this purposes, let's just get going. So we've got Billy on the go. So here's our repository. At this point here, this is one private repository, but we need to create a second repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Evil Saint YouTube. I'm going to click on repositories, and I'm going to click on new. There's multiple ways of getting here. It's just a quick way. I'm going to call this one Bob. Okay, so we've got Billy and we've got Bob. Well, Billy Bob. Make that private. Add a README. I'm not going to bother with a git ignore template. So for this one, I'm just going to create a repository. Okay. Now we're going to start cloning these keys. We're going to start cloning these repos with keys so we can start work on our project. One thing you might not know is when you're in this screen, if you just press the full stop, so the period or the full stop on your keyboard, it actually will open up a VS Code-like editor in GitHub. I've spoke to a few consultants and developers who did not know that, but you can see now that it's actually spinning me up an environment inside Git just by pressing the full stop key. So bear that in mind, and then obviously once you're in this environment, you can do your editing, so we can look at the README, and I can add something to Bob. Bob likes cats, for example. Now, my resolution's quite tight for this video, but once you've done all this, you can make all your changes in here, and just get on with your life, okay, without having to go to the browser. So that is one option for you. If you don't want to make changes here and you want to carry on what I'm going to do, we're just going to go back to the repo and we're going to go into settings and we're going to go down to deploy keys. We're going to add a new deploy key. And then inside here, we'll call this, so what do we call it? We'll call it Bob. So we'll go Bob key and we'll call this ID underscore RSA, just so I know which key is what when we go back to the terminal. Okay, I'm going to paste in here the key. So that's the key. Make sure you are putting the public key in and it starts with the SSH-RSA or one of the other types of encryption. Do not paste your private key in here. Your private key will be a lot longer as well. Well, I hope it'll be a lot longer. And that is something that we will talk about maybe in later videos, the bit length and the types of encryption of SSH keys. But just for now, let's just allow the right access and we'll add the key. Great. So now we've done that and we've added the key, we're now able to go back to code. We're able to click on code, look at local, under SSH, we'll copy, and we'll go back to the terminal. So we're back in the terminal now. I'm going to press Ctrl-L to clear the screen. I'm going to clone this repo underneath the op directory for some reason. It doesn't have to be, it can be anywhere you want. I've just decided that just now. I'm now going to clone my repo and the git command is not even found. So you can tell we're going live. You can tell this is off the top and it's a brand new server. So I'm just going to do apt get install git and just install git and we'll go yes. Okay, Control-L, clear the screen. I'm going to go back up twice. I'm just going to go clone. Now it's going to ask us to authenticate or to approve the authenticity of the remote host. In this case, we do trust GitHub. We recognize the IP address, or at least I do in this instance. And we're going to say yes. Once we've done this once, this will then become a line in our known hosts file, and we won't have to approve this fingerprint again. This is probably a deeper discussion for another video, and I can go into more details about known hosts and authorized hosts, and maybe we can even look at cracking some of these. But anyway, this is another video. Let's not digress. Sorry, John. We're going to go back to Git. So I guess yes. Okay, so now we have a repo. If I go ls into this directory, we can see we've got Bob, and if I go into Bob, you can see we've got our README. Okay, so there's Bob. Now, you can just see it's just there. So the reason it's shown it on one line is there's no line breaks. If I was to do cat and then just take vet and then do readme, you can see there would be, actually you can't see, so let me just go into the readme. Let's go return, test, and save that. Now we'll just go back up and you can see there is some line breaks now, but there wasn't before. If you ever get into problems debugging funny symbols, files in Linux, any kind of special characters you want to show up and stuff, and I always remember it as taking my cat to the vet. So it's just a little tip there as well. So remember that along with the press and period sign inside GitHub to get the full editor in the browser. Control-L, and we're going to go and step out of this repo. Okay, now I want a second repository. Now I'm going to keep my second repository inside my initial Evil Saint YouTube, but in real life, it can be anywhere. It can be GitLab, it could be Bitbucket, it could be a second GitHub account. This is going to be a contrived example just to show you how to manage multiple keys. So under here now we're going to go back to YouTube. I'm going to go to repositories, and oh yeah, and it's got Billy. So this is one I actually did set up. So let's just go to Billy, and there's no need to do a second repository now. So let's go into Billy. Now if I go to deploy keys, Billy hasn't got any deploy keys. So if I was to use the same deploy key again on GitHub, so if I wanted two separate keys, and that's not on copy and paste, let's just go back to the terminal quickly. And if I just go cat, use the tilde, SSH, git.pub. So if I was to use the same key again and copy this, you'll see that I'll get an error from GitHub saying the key's already in use. Now I like to have separate keys per project. Okay, so I actually do use a lot of deploy keys. But let's just give you an example of what will happen. Git will say keys already in use up here, but I'll allow write access, add key, and keys already in use. So we need a second key. So let's go back to the terminal. And in fact, I'm just going to take me off the screen so I can get a sip of water because it is baking in here. Okay. And apologies, guys, this is like my second go of using OBS, so these will get better. So let's go and make a second key. I'm going to go SSH keygen. Now there is options that you can pass to keygen in order to do this next step. I don't want to go too much into depth in keygen right now. So do what I do in this video. If you know better, do better. If you don't know better, just follow along for me for a second. Control L, I'm going to let this go play. And I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so I'm going to do SSH, and then this is going to be called Billy. Okay, so we've got a second key called Billy. No passphrase, no passphrase. Control L just to clear the screen to make it easier, especially from some kind of mobile device. I'm now going to go into my SSH key folder, and you'll see I've got Billy and Billy.pub. Let's output Billy.pub from that folder. So just Control L again, clear the screen. And I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm going to go back to the browser. Let's add a deploy key. So we'll call this one Billy key, and we'll allow write access, and we'll add the key. Now, this is where things get interesting, because if you're a beginner, you think, well, I've created two keys. I've got both keys now inside deploy keys for GitHub. I'm now going to go to code. I'm now going to clone my repo. And this is where things fall down. So let's go back to the terminal. And we'll do Control L. I'm going to shift back into the opt directory. And I'm going to do git clone, like so. And it's going to error out because it doesn't actually know that the Billy key goes with the Billy GitHub repo. Okay, so I hope that makes sense so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some configuration in order to make this match up. So I'm going to do cd back into my SSH folder. I'm going to press Control L, clear the screen to make it easy for you guys to see. I'm going to do nano config. The reason I'm using nano is if I start using Vi and I start using all the shortcuts and stuff, it's going to be quite hard to see what I'm doing and follow along if you've never used Vi before. So we're just going to keep it nice and simple. Now, there's 4 lines that you're going to need for every time that you want to add an additional repo without a default named key. So the first thing we do is I'm just going to type in host. Now, this host name is going to be the name that you are going to use to reference the URL. Okay, so let me just go back to the browser a second. So when you clone this repo, the host is going to replace this section here after the and sign and before the actual name of your repo, the name of your GitHub account. Okay, so it's going to replace this bit here. So what I like to do, going back to the terminal, is I like to just go, let's say, Evil Saint, I'll call this one Billy. Let's just get rid of start here. We'll call this Evil Saint Billy. Okay, so that is the name that we're going to use when we're cloning. But Evil Saint Billy doesn't actually exist on the web as a host name. So we still need to give the host name to tell the config where to go to. Now, this could be GitLab, this could be GitHub, this could be anything. But in this case here, we need to make sure that we are, one second, just making sure I haven't mucked up OBS. Again, apologies, guys, it's all new to me. No, it looks good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to send the host name. I like to do 4 spaces for indent. I'm just going to type host name here. And we're going to say, in this case, the host name where we're going to is github.com. Okay, so github.com, but this might be GitLab, or this might be a private hosted GitLab account on a different domain, even Bitbucket, whatever it is you're using. This is going to point to that actual URL. Now we need to give an identity file, which is basically say this is the SSH key that goes along with this host name. So it's a new line and go 4 spaces in, and we're just going to type in here identity, like that, identity, and then file. So this will be the path to that key that we've just created. So if I just go that.ssh, and then I think we called it Billy, didn't we? Again, sorry, I'm going live, and I'll check that in a second. It should work. And then the last thing that you might want to do is identities only. That's probably a discussion for a much longer video when we go into more in-depth SSH and configurations. But just for now, to get this working for the first initial lesson, seeing as this is meant to be an entry lesson to the series of GitHub videos I'm going to be doing, and not just GitHub, I guess, but just Git in general. And let's just type in identities, like that, identities, okay, and then only, like so, and then just go yes. Let's make sure I spell that right. Identities, why does that not look right? It's one of those words, isn't it? Identity files, identity onlys, yeah, okay, right, cool. Let's just come out of that and save that. Now, if I go back to the op directory and go up, if this has worked and there's no mistakes, I should be able to clone Billy, and there was a problem, and that might be because the config is not correct. So let's click Control L, and let's just go and check a few things. So SSH, look at the config. So that's what the config was. And this is why it's good to go live, actually, because you can see any mistakes if I make them. So we've got Billy, and we've got Billy there, and just make sure that we've got everything right in the browser. I'm just clicking the browser to make sure I put the right key in the deploy keys, and it's the Billy key. So what is going on here? Let's have a look and see. Everything looks good. Yeah, it looks. Oh, sorry. You know what? Again, because we've gone live, I've literally just made the error that I literally just pointed out to you that we would be changing. So again, apologies, going live. So if we just go back up again, what I've done here is I tried to do the cloning, but if you look, we actually called our host Evil Saint Billy. It's okay. So good spot, guys. Everyone's probably been screaming at the screen, but here we go. So Evil Saint Billy. I'm just going to press Control L again. Now, if you see, because we've changed this from github.com, it's now going to be able to reference that key combination in the SSH config file. I press enter, and it's now cloning Billy. So that's how we set up multiple SSH keys on multiple Git repositories, multiple Git accounts. So that is the entrance to getting this set up. That's the first video in the series. From here, we'll start looking at more advanced stuff and go from initializing repositories, adding files, and I don't know how far you guys want me to go. Do you want me to go up to doing hooks and actions and GitHub actions, that is, and hooks and stuff, or just stick to the basics? I'll keep making videos. Please leave comments if you liked it, if you didn't like it. If you want me to change topic, I will do. Okay, that's great, guys. Thank you very much for your time. That is me